I was like, this is super relatable. The sugar cane, the nail tech, the the salsa dancing. I was like, that looks like where I'm from. I was like, those look like my parents. Those look like mi familia. That's like all my cousins. I think I recognized a few people there. I thought it was great. That was the kind of culture I grew up with. That was kind of the rhythm of where I grew up in Mexico City. And they look like my people, talk like my people. I was like, finally, I feel included. No, I'm joking, of course. Just rage base. You guys are idiots. You guys are idiots, all right? It's just a little rage bait. Hey, just jokes, relax. Everyone's gonna be okay. What do you need, a safe space? Here, we'll rent an overflow space and, we'll hang up some red, white, and blue streamers and we'll put some country music on, okay? We'll do a little counter programming. Okay, would that make you feel better? Do you need a little safe space? This song is in Spanish. This isn't English, this is Spanish. Hey, it's okay. We have some counter programming. We rented an overflow room. We're gonna play some country music. There, it's all right. It's gonna be fine. We'll have some ranch dressing. We'll have some Domino's pizza. It's gonna be fine. No, I'm kidding. I'm just, guys. Since when did our side become like this? Maybe we've always been like this and I just never saw it. Here's my unironic take about the halftime. I'm joking around a little bit. Here's my unironic take. Is we have to talk about a couple of things. We have to talk about the halftime show. We can't talk about it without also discussing the Kid Rock thing that was going on somewhere else. What the fuck was that? I mean, if that's the best we have to offer, honestly, I'm switching sides. If that's, seriously, they said this is the all-American halftime show, God, family, and it's like, okay, if that's the all-American halftime show, I don't know, guys. We're losing them. We got to come up with something better because that was a tough watch. If it is a requirement to pretend to like that, to be like a patriot, like I can't do it. I'm just telling you up front. I'm going to be honest with you. Full disclosure, I can't do it. I think I'd rather kill myself than pretend to like that. So you're telling me we're at the Super Bowl party with the normies, with the hoes, with the chuds and the... We're at the Super Bowl watch party. We're having our taquitos. We're having our wings, pizza, watching the big game. Everybody's having a good time. You're telling me we have to turn off the TV or we have to switch the input. We have to go to the Rumble app and watch some AI ad about like alternative medicine. And then we have to watch Kid Rock and this like generic country music. And we have to pretend to like this. We have to all be like, this is really good. She's really good. I'm not doing it. I can't do it. It sucks. And, not for nothing. Didn't we do this for the RNC? Isn't this just like our token celebrity? Didn't Kid Rock play the RNC? It's just like a freak show. It's like Amber Rose was there last year at the 2 years ago at the RNC. Kid Rock. And I'm watching the show. I actually watch it this afternoon, and I'm like, yeah, this is kind of like maybe a section of what we're about that is kind of going away, and maybe there's no bringing it back. I don't know. Is there anything kind of worth hanging on to there? It's kind of a rough thing. And I said this on Telegram, and it was a little controversial, but let's be honest. The Bad Bunny halftime show, let's be perfectly honest, it wasn't a militantly woke show. It just wasn't. The way that conservatives were talking about it, I thought it was going to be Drag Queen Story Hour. The way that conservatives were fear-mongering and creating this anxiety about this halftime show, they're like, it's going to be an anti-ICE, anti-Trump. They're going to burn the American flag. He's going to be cross-dressing. It's not what it was. And let's take a step back and not look at it through the lens of being a chud that is obsessed with politics. Let's take a step back and look at it through the eyes of a normie. It's like a Latino-themed show. It's like a different theme. And yeah, it's in Spanish, got it. And yeah, it's very Puerto Rican, it's very Latin. But if I'm a normie and I'm watching this, it's basically just an inoffensive, Latin-themed show. And it's not really that political. Obviously, there's a political subtext, and we can get into that. The significance of it is not lost on anybody, that in the middle of this ICE thing, in the middle of the mass deportations and the phenomenon of ICE removals, which heavily target Hispanics, the significance is not lost on anybody that you have this celebration of Latin America, and it's in Spanish. And we know this artist's politics, this Bad Bunny character. I don't think any white Americans know who he is, listen to him. This is an artist for Latin Americans in the United States, outside the United States. And so to have this guy, and also we know his politics in particular, he said fuck ICE at the Grammys and all that. And then at the end, he comes out with all the different flags from Latin America. Love triumphs over hate. Of course, there is a subtext. I understand that. But if you step outside of yourself as a chud that, like I said, you're obsessed with politics, and you go into the big social outing of the year, the Super Bowl watch party, and you can't stop thinking about politics and Trump and, you know, this kind of stuff. If you're a normie and you're watching it, it's basically inoffensive. It's not explicitly political.
I do agree with Nick right here. If you're someone who's really far right, radical, all about politics all day on Twitter, you probably absolutely hate the Bad Bunny performance. But I agree with Nick. I was expecting to see Bad Bunny in a dress, a gay marriage, in the center of the performance, all this woke elements. We didn't get any of that. So I just saw it as a regular, just a performance. Nothing really crazy special. And quite frankly, I don't care. I hate woke elements. I'm not on the left. I lean more towards right, and I do agree with a lot of things Nick Fuentes says. But with that being said, I was not offended at all by the halftime show. It's like, who cares? Who cares about the Super Bowl? Who cares about football? I agree. I think a lot of people were over-exaggerating on the magnitude of this halftime show. It wasn't a big deal. Just a whole big nothing burger.
It's implicitly political. It's not actually antagonistic. I didn't feel, and I say this as a right-wing white American, as really a far-right white nationalist, whatever you want to say, I did not feel antagonized by the show. I didn't feel like the show was taunting me. I didn't feel like it was antagonizing me. I didn't feel that it was defiant. I didn't feel like it was militant or anti-American. I think that it was actually, and I say this from the point of view of what it is propositionally, it's positive. And I don't mean by that it's good. I mean that it was a positive message. And the message was the US and Canada and all the countries of the Americas were celebrating all the people. And so whereas maybe different expressions of wokeism in the past were very negative, it was about saying fuck white people, fuck America, and conservatives and Christians. And it was about giving them the middle finger and deliberately taunting them and antagonizing them and reveling in how antagonistic they were being. It was almost like the mirror image of that. And rather, it was celebrating the diversity of the Latin Americans and it was a propositionally positive message. And arguably, there was even, you could say, an olive branch saying God bless America. Arguably, that's a political thing in itself, but waving the U.S. flag, throwing that in there, not having it loaded up with degeneracy, not having it completely loaded up with, LGBT type stuff or feminist stuff. You could argue that's something like an olive branch. In a way, it's inclusive towards chuds. Like a normie who is not aligned, or a chud could actually watch it and plausibly not feel like they're being attacked. Now, why do I point this out? A lot of people are not going to like me saying this because people are going to say, well, what are you talking about? It's in Spanish. It's cultural imperialism. They are brown and they're speaking Spanish and that's anti-white, et cetera, et cetera. And I get all that. Here's the reason why I'm saying this. We have to reconcile and come to terms with the fact that the left is a different animal today than it was 5 years ago. Something changed 5 years ago. The culture began to shift. And I think it started around 2021. After Joe Biden was inaugurated, and this is in the middle of the pandemic, and it's after BLM and the riots, and you have the Ukraine war, which starts a year later in 2022. You have a lot of criticism of critical race theory. It's right around this time that I think the culture fully shifted or began to shift. And it began to shift because people saw the contradictions inherent in wokeism. And what were those contradictions? So they had everybody posting the black square, Black Lives Matter, BLM, he can't breathe. But then at the same time, everybody saw the riots and the summer of love and the crime, and they saw what abolishing the police looks like. They also saw a lot of anti-white hatred. And so people started to say, wait a second. To the extent that a normie believes in wokeism, which is equality and anti-racism and kumbaya and all this, tolerance, pluralism, people said this doesn't really work. Because on the one hand, we are saying equality and tolerance and this sort of thing. I can't breathe. At the same time, in effect, it is anti-white and it's crime. And it's actually just making everybody out to be a hypocrite and making everybody out to look stupid. Here everybody was sympathetic, raising the fist, taking the knee, posting the square. And what did these black people do? They then burned down the city. And actually, the BLM organization was stealing from everybody. Not only did they burn down the city, but they actually burned down their own city. So on the one hand, you're arguing that we need a better quality of life for black people. How do we do that? Let's destroy all the infrastructure. I'm not saying that. I think normies thought this. These were powerful arguments for normies. They said, so BLM is corrupt. They said abolishing the police leads to crime. It seems like an excuse actually for crime. And so much of it is just anti-white. And we saw that with critical race theory. People got sick of the COVID lockdowns. They saw the Democrat politicians were having dinner in restaurants while they were forcing everybody to mask. They saw the lunacy of the double maskers, the fake science. They found out many of the conspiracies were true. Then with Ukraine, people saw that we're raising the flag for democracy and liberalism, but you're putting all this money behind a totally corrupt government. They don't hold elections. So there was sort of this cultural moment in 2021 and 2022, I think, when people became disenchanted and disillusioned with woke, left-wing, liberal hegemony. They saw what we saw years before, what many of the disaffected young white men saw in 2016 with the first Trump election, in 2017 and 2018, all of this futurist female, anti-white, global citizen type stuff that we saw then. I think the normies caught up about 5 or 6 years later. And they saw the censorship, the foreign wars, the lockdowns, the BLM crap, the anti-whiteness, and I think slowly but surely people started to turn against it. Now, the left has adapted. And I think you're starting to see what I would call a post-woke leftism. And they have sort of synthesized the critiques of wokeism. And you see this in the rise of dark woke and the dirtbag left and these guys like Cumtown.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I still think the left is clueless on some elements. They say things like they need a Joe Rogan on the left side. I still think they're demonizing white people and just, if you like Trump, you're a Nazi. I think they're going too hard on those type of rhetorics. And I somewhat agree with Nick right here. I still think there's a lot of crazy. I think you got to come to the realization there's craziness and radicalness on both sides.
Racial slurs in an ironic way. And you got guys like Shane Gillis. I actually consider Shane Gillis to be like a post-woke left-wing comedian, where they can present as a chud, they can present as maybe culturally, racially insensitive, in reality holding liberal politics. And maybe he's a bad example, maybe he's not a Democrat, but he shows how it's possible to be still liberal, still maybe holding a woke politics, but not with that overbearing, over-the-top woke demeanor, the kind of censorship and blue-haired, triggered SJW type stuff from the years before. I also think about Kamala Harris's election. Now, Kamala, she was the vice president. There was a machine that propelled her into the nomination after Biden stepped down. But when she picked a vice president, she picked Tim Walz as basically an olive branch to white people. They said, we need a white football coach from the Midwest, from Minnesota, to get white men on board. They started selling a camouflage hat. What do you think that was? That was their version of a MAGA hat. Think about it. In 2016, they said the MAGA hat is a swastika. In 2024, they had their own version of it.
Yeah, kind of interesting. I think that the left did know they're losing the white people. So I think Tim Walz was a play into that to say, hey, we don't think all you guys are evil. Here we go. Here's Tim. So very interesting take on the halftime show. Let me know what you think. Do you think Nick is being is he being fair with his critique about the Bad Bunny halftime show? Do you care about the halftime show? Let me know in the comments. Peace.